The first thing people noticed about Lin Xiaoran was that she never asked for help. Not when her family tore up her university acceptance letter into pieces. Not when they told her she was being sold into marriage to clear her wasteful and irresponsible brother's debt. Not when she fled into a thunderstorm with nothing, absolutely nothing but the clothes on her body and a scholarship she'd earned with 3 years of tedious work and suffering. She was 19 years old. She had seen hell everywhere she turned. She did not know she was about to survive the hardest thing yet. The night she crossed paths with Gu Yichen, she was working a charity banquet she couldn't afford to attend as a guest. He was the man everyone whispered about. President Gu, 31, wealthiest heir in the capital, cold as winter steel, medically incapable of having children, 17 generations of hereditary infertility, they said. The Gu bloodline ends with him.
She didn't know any of that.
She only knew that when their hands collided over a toppled tray, he looked at her like she was a problem he hadn't scheduled. And then someone spiked his drink, and the night dissolved into something neither of them planned. She didn't stay until morning. She didn't leave a name. She left before the city woke up, slipping out into gray dawn air, telling herself it was nothing, a mistake, a night that would fade, and focused, with everything she had, on surviving the next day. Until the day her body told her she wasn't alone anymore. 3 heartbeats on a screen. 3 lives she hadn't asked for, and couldn't imagine giving up. This is the story of what happened next. Of a poor girl who never bent to poverty, power, or even to the most feared man in the capital. And of the infertile CEO who had 17 generations of proof he couldn't be a father. But to understand how Lin Xiaoran ended up in this messy situation, you have to go back. Back to the family that sold her. Before the story begins, make sure you're part of this community. Hit subscribe, tap like, and tell me where you're watching from. Every click pushes these stories to more people who need to hear them. And tonight's story? You'll be glad you didn't skip it. The rain kept falling. President Gu stood frozen beside the roadside, staring at the girl who had just rewritten his family's history. But the truth of that night did not begin in the storm. It began months earlier, under crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors. Back when Lin Xiaoran still believed her life was under her control. Before everything fell apart, Xiaoran had been the pride of her school. Top of her class. Full scholarship. Admitted to one of the most prestigious universities in the capital. Her professors called her brilliant. Her classmates called her distant. She spent her evenings in the library and her weekends tutoring children to pay for books her scholarship didn't cover. She believed education was her only way out. But her family had other plans. Her older brother had accumulated gambling debts, debts large enough to threaten their small apartment. Instead of confronting him, her parents turned to the only asset they believed they had left. Her. "You're 19, her mother had said coldly. "It's time you contribute." The contribution was a marriage proposal. A man nearly 50, wealthy, recently divorced, willing to pay generously. "It's not selling," her father insisted. "It's securing your future." Xiaoran refused. The argument lasted weeks. Her tuition payment was withheld. Her dorm access revoked. The acceptance letter she treasured was ripped in half and thrown into the trash. So she found work. 2 part-time jobs. Sometimes 3. One of them was serving at a high-profile charity banquet hosted by the Gu Corporation. That was the night she met him. The ballroom shimmered with gold light. Crystal glasses clinked. Wealth and power moved through the air like perfume. She wore a simple black server's uniform, her hair tied neatly back. She kept her eyes lowered and her steps quiet. That was how she first saw him. Gu Yichen.
Tall.
Immaculate. Controlled. He did not laugh loudly like the other executives. He did not drink excessively. He did not look at the women who hovered around him. He seemed carved from ice. She had been instructed not to speak unless spoken to. But when she approached his table to refill a glass, she felt his gaze pause on her for half a second longer than necessary. Not desire, recognition, or perhaps curiosity. She moved on quickly. What she didn't see was the subtle exchange at another table, a rival executive slipping something into President Gu's unattended drink. Corporate sabotage disguised as celebration. Minutes later, the shift was subtle. Ichen's posture stiffened. His jaw tightened. His usual composure thinned. Zhou Yang stepped forward, but Ichen waved him off. "I'm fine." He wasn't. His vision blurred. His breathing sharpened. And through that haze, the only clear image he registered was the young waitress who didn't stare at him like he was a prize. "Water," he said. Sharon handed it to him immediately. Their fingers brushed. Heat sparked, brief but undeniable. She noticed the slight tremor in his hand, the unnatural flush in his face. "Sir, are you all right?" The question was simple, sincere, not opportunistic. He tried to respond, but the room tilted. Instinct overrode protocol. She helped him out before anyone could turn it into spectacle. Up the private elevator. Down the quiet hotel corridor. Her heart pounded, not from ambition, but from fear. If something happened to him on her watch, she would lose everything. Inside the suite, he leaned heavily against the door once it closed. "Don't call anyone," he said hoarsely. His pride was fighting the drug. She hesitated. This was dangerous. Improper. A mistake waiting to happen. But she also saw something else, vulnerability. The most powerful man in the room, suddenly human. The night blurred after that. Not into scandal, not into calculation, but into confusion. Words half-finished. Silences stretched too long. Walls lowered by circumstance, neither of them fully understood. He mistook her steady presence for comfort. She mistook his unguarded moment for trust. One crazy night. One collision of two collapsing worlds. And then, morning. Sunlight cut sharply through the curtains. The spell was gone. Ichen woke first. Clarity returned with brutal speed. A hotel suite. A young woman. No memory clear enough to defend himself. His expression hardened instantly. "So, this was the plan?" he asked coldly. The words struck like ice. Shaoran had already risen. She had barely slept. Regret and shame tangled in her chest, not because she had trapped him, but because she knew how this looked.
"I didn't," she began.
But he was already pulling on his jacket. "You should know," he said evenly. "This won't work." No anger, just dismissal. She understood. In his world, girls like her didn't end up in executive suites by accident. She didn't defend herself again. Instead, she bowed her head once. "I'm sorry." For what? She wasn't even sure. Before dawn fully broke, she slipped out quietly. Neither of them looked back. 2 months later, Shaoran stood in the cramped bathroom of her family's apartment. The cheap plastic pregnancy test trembled in her hand. 2 lines. Her breath caught. She sat down slowly on the cold tile floor. This wasn't possible. Her mind raced back to that night, the confusion, the vulnerability, the mistake. Her hands moved instinctively to her abdomen. A hospital visit confirmed it. Then the nurse frowned. "Miss Lin, I need to check again." The ultrasound machine hummed. Silence filled the room. And then, 3 rapid heartbeats echoed through the sterile air. Sharon stared at the screen, tears sliding down her cheeks. Not 1, not 2, 3. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, as if the storm had been waiting to return. And this time, there would be no quiet escape before morning. The 3 heartbeats echoed in Lin Xiaoran's ears long after she left the hospital. She did not cry on the bus ride home. She did not cry when she stepped into the cramped apartment that had never truly felt like hers. She only pressed a hand gently against her abdomen and whispered, barely audible, "I'll protect you." From that moment on, she carried her secret alone. Morning sickness became her new shadow. She adjusted her work schedule, taking night shifts cleaning offices so fewer people would see her pale face. During the day, she sorted packages at a warehouse. When exhaustion threatened to swallow her whole, she reminded herself that 3 lives depended on her staying upright. She avoided mirrors. Loose clothing hid the gradual curve of her stomach. She ate less at home, so no one would question the nausea. She saved every coin. Her body grew weaker. Her resolve did not. But secrets do not stay buried in small apartments. One evening, her mother noticed the untouched dinner. "You're wasting food again," she snapped. Xiaoran forced a smile. "I'm just tired." Her brother, Lin Wei, watched her carefully. His debts were still unpaid. The wealthy widower had withdrawn his proposal when she refused to cooperate. Opportunity was slipping through their fingers. And then one morning, Xiaoran fainted in the kitchen. When she woke, her mother was holding a hospital report. The silence in the room was more terrifying than shouting. "You're pregnant," her mother said flatly. Xiaoran said nothing. "How dare you?" The words exploded. "You ruined our chance. You disgraced this family." Lin Wei stepped forward, eyes sharp. "Who is it?" Silence. "Tell me his name," he demanded. "If he has money, we can negotiate." "It's not about money," Xiaoran said softly. Her mother slapped her. The sound cracked through the small apartment. "You think you're noble? You think this is romantic? 3 babies? Do you even know how shameful this is?"
3.
The word hung in the air like a curse. Her father, who had barely spoken in months, muttered, "Get rid of them." Sharon's hand instinctively shielded her stomach. No. The refusal was quiet, but it was absolute. That was the moment she stopped being their daughter. The confrontation escalated quickly. Neighbors gathered when voices rose. Windows opened. Whispers spread. Her mother seized her arm and dragged her toward the door. "If you won't speak inside, you'll speak outside." Rain had begun to fall again, thin and cold. They pushed her into the street. By then, her pregnancy was visible. Her school uniform, once a symbol of promise, was stretched awkwardly over her swollen abdomen. "Look at her," her mother shouted to the growing crowd. 19 years old, and already pregnant. 3 babies. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. She trapped some rich man. She must have planned it. Girls like this ruin families. Xiaoran swayed slightly, but did not fall. Lin Wei grabbed her shoulder roughly. "Say his name." She kept her eyes lowered. "Say it," he shouted. Thunder rolled overhead. Rain soaked her hair, plastering it to her bruised cheek. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than breath. "Gui Chen." For a second, there was silence. Then laughter broke out. "Gui Chen? President Gu. She's insane. Do you even know who that is?" Even her brother scoffed. "You expect us to believe that?" Another shove sent her stumbling backward. Her heels slipped on the wet pavement. She fell hard against the curb. Pain shot up her side. Instinctively, her hands protected her stomach. The rain intensified. And then, headlights cut through the storm. One car, then another, then another.
Black. Polished. Silent.
The laughter faltered. Doors opened in synchronized precision. Zhou Liang stepped out first, umbrella in hand, expression unreadable. The crowd shifted uneasily. "Move," he said calmly. No one argued. Then the rear door opened. Leather shoes touched rain-soaked pavement. President Gu stepped into the storm. Even drenched in rain, even without the armor of a boardroom, he radiated command. His gaze scanned the scene once. He saw the bruises, the torn fabric, the way she curled slightly around her abdomen, and he saw the fear in her eyes. Recognition struck again, sharper this time. He walked toward her slowly. Each step silenced another whisper. Her mother's grip on her arm loosened instinctively. Yichen stopped in front of her. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain ran down his face unchecked. He removed his coat without hesitation and draped it over her shoulders. Warmth enveloped her trembling body. Then, he turned his gaze to the crowd. His voice was low, controlled.
Deadly.
"Let's see who dares touch her." No one moved. Lin Wei swallowed. Her mother stepped back. The storm continued, but the chaos had shifted. Power no longer belonged to the loudest voice. It belonged to the man standing in front of her. Zhou Liang signaled, and security personnel subtly positioned themselves around the perimeter. Yichen crouched slightly, so his eyes were level with hers. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly. For the first time that day, her composure cracked. She shook her head, but her hands trembled. "Call Dr. Liu," he said without looking away from her. Within minutes, a medical team arrived from the trailing vehicle. They worked quickly beneath umbrellas. A portable monitor. Careful examination. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Dr. Liu's face grew increasingly pale as she reviewed the preliminary results. She stood slowly and approached Yichen. "President Gu," she said carefully, her voice steady despite the weight of her words, "we need to run a formal DNA test immediately." He held her gaze. "Is there doubt?" Dr. Liu hesitated only a second.
No.
The rain seemed to pause between thunderclaps. "They are biologically yours." The words landed heavier than the storm. 17 generations. 17 generations of medical reports, failed attempts, quiet disappointments. Broken by the girl the world had just thrown away. Yichen looked back at Xiaoran, and this time, it wasn't recognition in his eyes. It was something far more dangerous. Responsibility. And, perhaps, wonder. The rain had not yet dried from President Gu's coat when the news reached the Gu estate. 3 heartbeats. Natural conception. Biologically his. For 17 generations, the Gu bloodline had relied on medicine, surrogates, and silent contracts sealed behind hospital doors. Every heir since the dynasty's founding had been conceived through intervention. It was an unspoken shame buried beneath towering success. And now, a 19-year-old scholarship student had broken it. Grandfather Gu was in the East Wing tea room when Zhou Yang delivered the report. The old man's hands were steady when he took the folder. They were not steady when he finished reading it. "This is verified?"
His voice was thin.
"Yes, Chairman." "Natural?" "Yes." The porcelain teacup slipped from his grip and shattered across the marble floor. Servants rushed forward, but Zhou Liang raised a hand, signaling them to stay back. Grandfather Gu stood slowly. For a brief, terrifying moment, his knees buckled. "Chairman," he waved them off, breath unsteady, but eyes blazing with something unfamiliar.
"Hope."
17 generations, he murmured. "The heavens have finally remembered us." Second Grandfather Gu was not as easily moved. In the main hall, beneath ancestral portraits and carved rosewood beams, the family elders gathered. "This could be a trap," he declared sharply. "A calculated move." Yichen stood at the head of the table, expression unreadable. "The DNA test is conclusive. DNA can be manipulated." Dr. Liu stepped forward calmly. "Not like this. We conducted triple verification. The embryos were conceived naturally. No medical assistance. No laboratory interference." A ripple moved through the room. Natural. It was more scandalous than artificial. It meant instinct. Impulse. Human error. It meant their heir, the cold, disciplined President Gu, had lost control. Second Grandfather's eyes narrowed. "And the girl?" Yichen's gaze flickered briefly. "She's 19. Scholarship student. No criminal record. No financial history that suggests planning. Her family, another elder pressed. Debt-ridden. Desperate. Murmurs. That makes her more suspicious," Second Grandfather said coldly. Grandfather Gu, who had remained silent until now, struck his cane against the floor. The sound silenced the hall instantly. "Enough." His voice carried the weight of decades. "You speak of suspicion. I speak of legacy." He turned to Yichen. "Bring her here." Lin Xiaoran did not expect the gates to be that large. The Gu estate rose like a city within walls, ancient architecture fused with modern precision. Stone lions guarded the entrance. Security personnel moved like shadows. She wore the simplest dress she owned. President Gu's coat had been returned to him. She insisted. When the car door opened, she stepped out carefully, one hand unconsciously resting on her abdomen. Servants watched discreetly, some curious, some calculating. She kept her gaze lowered. She would not give them the satisfaction of awe. Inside the main hall, the Gu family waited. Grandfather Gu studied her the moment she entered. Not her clothes, not her trembling hands. Her eyes. They were clear. Frightened, but not cunning. Second Grandfather spoke first. "Do you understand where you are?" "Yes." Do you understand what carrying those children means? Yes. And what do you want in return? The question landed heavily. Money, property, status, security. Most would have listed demands before the sentence finished. Shaoran lifted her chin slightly. I want to return to school. Silence. Absolute. Even the servants stopped breathing. Second grandfather blinked. What? I had a scholarship, she continued quietly. I worked hard for it. I want to finish. No mention of compensation. No negotiation. No request for a mansion. Grandfather Gu leaned forward slowly. You do not want marriage? He asked. She hesitated. Her eyes flickered briefly toward Yichen. He stood motionless, watching her as though she were a question he could not solve. I don't want to be a burden, she said honestly. And I don't want to be bought. The words echoed against carved wooden pillars. Second grandfather scoffed. Bold. Grandfather Gu did not smile. He studied her the way a seasoned general studies a battlefield. No greed. No manipulation. Only resolve. You would raise Gu heirs while attending university? He asked. Yes. You understand the scrutiny? Yes. You understand the responsibility? Her hand tightened slightly over her abdomen. I already feel it. Something shifted in the old man's gaze. Gu Zhenghong had built empires by recognizing rare materials before others did. Gold disguised as stone. He saw it now. Not scandal. Not threat. Destiny. He rose slowly, leaning on his cane. The Gu family does not abandon its blood, he declared. Second grandfather stiffened. You cannot mean. I do. He turned to Shaoran. You will marry Yichen. A sharp inhale rippled through the room. You will receive security, medical care, and protection. Another pause. And you will return to school. This time, even second grandfather did not interrupt. Grandfather Gu's gaze sharpened. But understand this. Once you enter the Gu family, you do not leave easily. Shaoran met his eyes. For the first time since arriving, she did not look small. I'm not afraid of hard work, she said. Yichen's expression shifted. Barely. But enough. The engagement announcement was controlled. Private. Strategic. The narrative reshaped before rumors could take form. A quiet union. An heir secured. No mention of rain-soaked streets. No mention of humiliation. The estate assigned her the West Wing. Doctors monitored her health daily. Nutritionists planned her meals. Security followed at a distance. Everything was arranged. Everything was provided. And yet, she carried her own books. She folded her own clothes. She declined the diamond necklace sent to her room. When servants addressed her as young madam, she corrected them gently. Shaoran is fine. She studied at a small desk by the window instead of the antique writing table meant for her. At dinner, she sat straight-backed, speaking only when addressed. She did not attempt to impress. She did not attempt to belong. Yichen observed quietly from across long tables. She refused extravagance, refused excess, refused to smile for photographs. One evening, Grandfather Gu asked her directly, "Why do you hold yourself apart?" She answered honestly, "Because I haven't earned my place yet." The old man's laughter echoed through the hall. Earned. No one had spoken that word inside these walls in years. Late that night, alone in the West Wing, Shaoran stood before the window overlooking manicured gardens. She placed both hands over her abdomen. "You're safe," she whispered. But safety did not feel like belonging. Outside her door, guards stood watch. Inside the estate, whispers continued. Second grandfather had not conceded defeat. And President Gu, he remained an enigma. A husband in name, a stranger in practice. The Gu family had accepted her, but she had not accepted them. Not yet. And as the lights of the estate dimmed one by one, Lin Shaoran made a quiet promise to herself. She would not be swallowed by gold. She would not forget who she was, even if she now carried the miracle air of the most powerful family in the city. Because belonging was something she intended to earn on her own terms. The West Wing no longer felt cavernous. It felt small, Small because 3 cribs now stood beneath soft cream curtains. Small because the silence of the Gu estate had been replaced by fragile, uneven breathing. Small because Lin Xiaoran had never known exhaustion could settle so deeply into bone. The delivery had shaken the entire medical wing. 3 healthy boys. 3 steady cries. 3 confirmations that the impossible had happened. Natural. Grandfather Gu had wept openly for the first time in decades. Yichen had not. But he had not left the hospital room either. Recovery was slower than anyone admitted. Her body had endured more than it should have at 19. Auntie Chin moved quietly around her room in the weeks that followed, gentle as falling snow. She was older, widowed young, and one of the few people in the estate who did not look at Xiaoran with calculation. "Drink this, child," Auntie Chin would murmur, holding warm herbal soup to her lips. Xiaoran obeyed without argument. She healed in layers, physically first, emotionally last. At night, when the baby stirred, she insisted on rising herself. "You don't have to," Auntie Chin would whisper. "I want to," Xiaoran would answer. She memorized the weight of each child. One cried louder. One slept longer. One clutched her finger with surprising strength. She learned their rhythms the way she once memorized textbooks. Methodically, lovingly. Yichen kept his distance. At least, that was what he told himself. "This arrangement is practical," he said one evening in grandfather's study. "Stability for the children. Protection for her." Grandfather Goose studied him over steepled fingers. "Is that what you believe?" "It's what makes sense." Marriage had been strategic, necessary,
Contained.
emotion complicated power. Yichen had built his life on control.
He intended to keep it that way.
And yet, he found himself walking past the nursery more often than required. He told himself he was checking security protocols, ensuring the heirs were guarded, ensuring no weakness existed. But one night, he paused at the slightly open door. Inside, Sharon sat in the rocking chair beneath a dim lamp. One baby slept against her shoulder. 2 lay quietly in their cribs. An open textbook rested on her lap. She was reading. Her voice was barely audible as she whispered formulas to herself, rocking gently in rhythm. He did not interrupt. He stood there longer than he meant to. She had dark circles beneath her eyes. Her hair was loosely tied back. There were no jewels on her wrists. No sign she lived inside one of the most powerful estates in the country. Just a 19-year-old girl balancing motherhood and calculus.
He felt something tighten in his chest.
He turned away before she could notice him. The collapse happened 3 weeks later. She had insisted she was fine. "I'm just tired," she told Auntie Chen. But she had not been sleeping. Not truly. That evening, while reviewing lecture notes between feedings, the room tilted. Her vision blurred. The book slipped from her hands. Auntie Chen's gasp echoed faintly before everything went dark. Yichen was in a late-night strategy meeting when Zhou Liang's phone vibrated. He saw the change in his assistant's expression instantly. "What is it?" "Madam fainted." The words cut through him. He did not remember standing. He did not remember leaving the boardroom. He only remembered reaching the nursery and seeing her pale against white sheets. Without hesitation, he lifted her. She weighed far less than she should have. Her head fell against his shoulder, unconscious. For a moment, brief and terrifying, he felt something close to fear. Not for reputation, not for legacy, for her. He carried her personally to Dr. Liu's private clinic wing. Doctors moved quickly. Vital signs stabilized. Exhaustion, malnutrition, overexertion. "She's pushing herself beyond recovery," Dr. Liu said carefully. Yichen's jaw tightened. "Why?" Dr. Liu gave him a look that required no explanation. "Because she refuses to rely on you." When Sharon woke, the first thing she saw was sterile white ceiling. The second was him. He stood by the window, hands in pockets, posture controlled. "You should rest," he said. "I'm fine." "You fainted." Silence. She tried to sit up. He moved instantly, steadying her without thinking. Their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, something unguarded passed between them. Then it was gone. You don't need to prove anything, he said quietly. She held his gaze. I do. To whom? To myself. He exhaled slowly. You are not a surrogate. The word felt harsh in the air. Her expression changed, not wounded, but firm. I know what people think. No one inside this estate. People outside. Her voice did not tremble. I won't raise children who think their mother survived on charity. The words landed harder than accusation, harder than defiance. They were truth. He studied her as if seeing her for the first time. You live here. You have access to everything. I didn't ask for everything. Her fingers tightened in the blanket. I asked to return to school. Silence settled between them again. He realized then, painfully clearly, that she did not view the estate as privilege. She viewed it as debt. And she refused to owe. Something inside him shifted. Not desire. Not yet.
Respect. Deep.
Unsettling. Earned. That night, he did not leave the clinic until she fell asleep again. And when he returned to the estate, he paused outside the nursery. 3 cribs. 3 futures. He imagined them growing up believing their mother had been rescued.
Saved.
He imagined them thinking she had been placed here like furniture. The thought made his hands curl into fists.
No.
They would know her strength, even if he had to be the one to make sure of it. Days later, Sharon resumed studying.
More carefully this time.
Auntie Chen watched her with softened eyes. You don't have to fight alone, the older woman whispered. Shaoran smiled faintly. I know, but independence was stitched into her bones. Late one evening, while the babies slept and the estate quieted, her phone vibrated softly on the desk. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello. Is this Lin Shaoran? Yes. This is the admissions office. We wanted to inform you that your scholarship position has been officially preserved. Your slot remains open for the upcoming semester. For a moment, she could not speak. Your academic record was exceptional, the voice continued. We were notified of your circumstances. When you are ready, you may return. Ready? The word trembled inside her. Thank you, she whispered. When the call ended, she remained seated in silence. The door to the nursery shifted slightly. Yichen had heard only fragments. University? He asked. She looked up at him, and for the first time since entering the Gu estate, her eyes shone not with defiance, but with hope. My admission slot was preserved. The words felt fragile, precious. He nodded once. That's good. But as he watched her cradle that possibility the way she cradled their sons, he realized something far more dangerous than scandal had taken root inside him. He no longer wanted this arrangement to remain practical, and he was no longer certain he knew how to keep it that way. The black car drew attention long before it stopped. Its polished body reflected the university gates like a mirror, ancient stone arches framed against tinted glass. Security guards straightened instinctively. Students slowed mid-step. Phones appeared discreetly, then not so discreetly. The driver stepped out first. Then Lin Shaoran. She wore a simple white blouse and dark skirt. No jewelry. No designer bag. Just textbooks held firmly against her chest. The contrast was jarring. Luxury vehicle. Ordinary girl. Whispers began instantly. Isn't that Lin Shaoran? She dropped out last semester. I heard she got taken care of. She looks different. The car door closed with a soft click. The vehicle remained idling a moment too long, long enough for speculation to ferment. Shaoran did not look back. She had insisted the car drop her at the gate, not the academic building. I can walk, she told Zhou Liang. Now she did. Step by step, across the familiar courtyard. The campus smelled of wet leaves and chalk dust. Familiar. Grounding. For the first time in months, she felt something that did not belong to the Gu estate. Belonging. Her former classmates were less restrained. 2 girls near the fountain fell silent as she approached. Then one laughed. Well, look who's back. Shaoran recognized them instantly. Top 20 percentile. Never top 5. Didn't think you'd return after everything, one added sweetly. Shaoran adjusted the books in her arms. I didn't think so either, she replied calmly. Their eyes scanned her. No obvious signs of wealth. No baby weight clinging to her frame. No ring visible from a distance. You look well, the second girl said, disappointment laced beneath politeness. I am. A pause. Who's funding you now? The first asked bluntly. There it was. The real question. Shaoran held her gaze evenly. My grades. The girls exchanged looks. Before rumors could bloom further, Professor Han stepped into the courtyard. His sharp eyes landed on her immediately. Lin Shaoran. She straightened instinctively. Welcome back. No judgment. No curiosity. Only acknowledgement. Thank you, Professor. He nodded once. Your previous ranking remains unchanged. We'll see if you can maintain it. A challenge. Her lips curved slightly. I will. Inside the lecture hall, seats shifted as she entered. Some students avoided eye contact. Others stared openly. The empty seat in the front row, her old seat, waited. She took it. When the lecture began, she wrote notes with steady precision. The world outside could speculate. The board in front of her was simple. Numbers.
Theory.
Logic. No whispers could alter equations. By midweek, something else began circulating. Construction near the East Campus had accelerated. A new facility. Modern.
Quiet.
Discreet signage. Early Development Center. Sponsored initiative. Students speculated about funding sources. Probably a PR move by some corporation. Why build childcare here? No one knew the name behind it. The donation had been anonymous. But in the Gu Estates West study, Yichen signed the final approval documents without comment. Zhou Liang hesitated. Should we at least inform Madam? No. It's clearly for her benefit. It's for the university. Zhou Liang did not argue. He had worked with Gu Yichen long enough to recognize when practicality was no longer the full truth. The child care center opened quietly. Reserved spots. Flexible hours. Priority given to scholarship students with dependents. Shaoran discovered it accidentally. A campus email. She read it twice. Affordable. Professional staff. On-site medical room. Her fingers trembled slightly. Andy Chun had been helping at the estate, but balancing commuting hours with lectures had been exhausting. This made things possible. She visited the facility the next day. Bright rooms. Soft flooring. Educational toys. Not extravagant. Thoughtful. She filled out the forms with careful handwriting. She did not question how the funding appeared so precisely when she needed it most. Some blessings arrive without signatures. Weeks passed. Her routine hardened into discipline. Morning lectures. Midday visits to the child care center. Afternoons study. Evenings back at the estate. She ignored whispers. Ignored headlines that occasionally hinted at Gu family strategic alliances. Ignored curious glances from students trying to connect rumors to reality. Midterms arrived. Grades were posted publicly, as tradition dictated. Her name sat at the top. Again, the hallway buzzed. She didn't drop. She improved. After everything, Professor Han made a rare announcement. Consistency is not talent, he said dryly. It is character. Learn the difference. Several students glanced at Shaoran. She did not look up from her notebook. But inside, something steady strengthened. She was not surviving on charity. She was competing. And winning. That evening, in the Gu Estate security room, multiple monitors glowed softly. Yichen stood alone. One screen displayed the university's main courtyard. Another, the child care facility entrance. He should not have been watching. It was unnecessary. Excessive. But when the live feed showed her stepping across campus, books in hand, spine straight, head lifted, he did not look away. Students parted unconsciously as she passed. Not because of wealth, because of presence. She moved differently now. Not smaller, not defensive.
Certain.
The wind caught a loose strand of her hair. She tucked it behind her ear without breaking stride. And for the first time in weeks, he smiled.
Small.
Unintentional.
Real.
Not pride. Not possession. Something warmer. He muted the monitor before Zhou Yang could enter. At dinner that night, he asked casually, "How are your classes?" She looked surprised by the question. Challenging. Manageable? Yes. A pause. The campus added a childcare center, she added. It's well done. His fork paused briefly. That's good. She nodded. I'm grateful someone thought of students like that. He said nothing, but later, alone, he lingered longer than necessary in the West Wing hallway. Gratitude was dangerous. He preferred respect, yet hearing it directed towards something he had done, without her knowing, unsettled him in ways boardroom victories never had. Not everyone celebrated her return. Across the city, inside a glass tower bearing the insignia of GU Corporation's largest competitor, a different conversation unfolded. Rival executives reviewed industry intelligence reports. One paused over a discrete line item: unusual medical expenditures from GU estate last quarter. Another scrolled further. Security increased around West Wing. A third document surfaced. Private hospital registry. Multiple neonatal records. The room fell silent. Children? One executive asked slowly. Possible heirs. The implications were immediate. GU Corporation stock stability depended heavily on succession clarity. For years, speculation about Ichen's inability to produce heirs had circulated quietly within financial circles. If natural heirs now existed, power calculations shifted. Stock projections changed. Leverage evaporated. Confirm this, the CEO ordered coldly. Discreetly, screens dimmed. Orders were sent. Investigations began. Back on campus, unaware of corporate tremors spreading beneath the surface, Lin Xiaoran exited her final lecture of the day. The sky burned gold with late afternoon sun. Students crossed the courtyard in clusters. She walked alone. Not isolated. Independent. Her phone buzzed with a message from Annie Chen. The boys are napping. She allowed herself a small smile. Behind tinted glass parked across the street, a camera lens adjusted focus.
Click.
The first image of her walking confidently across campus, mother of GU heirs, top of her class, was captured. And somewhere in a rival boardroom, a single sentence echoed. So the rumors are true. The camera lens clicked. Across the street from campus, inside a parked sedan with tinted windows, a man lowered his equipment slowly. He made a call. Yes, he said quietly. It's confirmed. She's alone most afternoons. Security rotation predictable. A pause. Understood. The line disconnected. That evening, Sharon left campus later than usual. Midterm review had run long. The sky had already darkened, city lights bleeding into low clouds. Zhou Yang waited beside the black sedan. Madam, he greeted respectfully, opening the rear door. She nodded, sliding inside with her textbooks resting beside her. The boys were already home with Auntie Chen. The estate felt farther tonight for some reason. The car merged into traffic. Streetlights streaked across the windows. Sharon leaned her head lightly against the glass, replaying equations in her mind. Then, headlights. Too bright. Too fast. Zhou Yang's eyes snapped to the rearview mirror. A black SUV barreled toward them from the adjacent lane. Not swerving. Not slowing. Targeted.
Hold on, he barked.
The SUV veered sharply. Impact. Metal screamed against metal. The sedan jolted violently sideways. Glass exploded. Shards sprayed across the interior like crystalline rain. Sharon's breath vanished from her lungs as the car spun, tires shrieking against asphalt. Another hit. Harder. The world became noise. And then, stillness. Except for the sound of cracking glass. And somewhere in her memory, the echo of rain from that first night. Zhou Liang moved instantly, already on his phone. Security breach. Coordinate sent. Move now. The SUV reversed. Attempted another strike. But a second black vehicle roared in from the opposite direction, GU estate security intercepting with brutal precision. The SUV swerved, tires burning, fleeing into oncoming traffic. Silence returned in fragments. Shaoran blinked.
Her ears rang.
Blood trickled faintly from a cut near her temple. The back window had shattered completely. Cold air rushed in. She tried to steady her breathing. "I'm fine," she whispered automatically. Zhou Liang turned in his seat, eyes scanning her quickly. "Are you hurt?"
Her voice faltered.
The image of the boys flashed through her mind. For the first time since the accident, fear arrived fully. Not for herself.
For them.
Gui Chen was in the middle of a late corporate dinner when his phone vibrated. One word lit the screen.
Attack.
He did not excuse himself. He did not apologize. He stood abruptly, chair scraping harshly against polished floor. Board members fell silent. He was already moving. By the time he reached the estate gates, security teams had secured the perimeter. The damaged sedan sat beneath floodlights. Driver's side dented. Windows shattered. He saw Zhou Liang first. Then, her. Standing outside the vehicle. Small against flashing emergency lights.
Alive.
His controlled exterior fractured instantly. He crossed the distance in seconds. Xiaoran. Not madam. Not mother. Not formal. Just Xiaoran. His hands were on her shoulders before he registered the movement. He scanned her face, fingers brushing gently over the cut near her temple. His voice dropped, no longer measured. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head faintly. "I'm okay." He pulled her into his arms without hesitation. Not calculated. Not composed.
Raw.
Her forehead pressed against his chest. And for the first time, she felt it. His heart. Racing. Uncontrolled. Violent in its rhythm. The great President Gu. Unshaken in boardrooms. Feared by competitors. And yet, his pulse betrayed him. He was terrified. For her. She closed her eyes briefly, listening. Feeling the tremor in his breathing. His fingers tightened at her back, as if confirming she was solid. Real. Still here. Security personnel looked away discreetly. Zhou Liang said nothing. Inside the estate, the boys began crying, disturbed by the unusual commotion outside. The sound cut through the night sharply. Xiaoran stiffened. "The babies. They're safe," Yichen said quickly. But he did not release her immediately. Not until he was certain she would not disappear. When he finally stepped back, his expression had hardened, but not into coldness. Into resolve. "Find who ordered it," he told Zhou Liang quietly. "Yes, President. No theatrics. No threats. Just lethal certainty." Later, when the estate quieted and the boys returned to sleep, Xiaoran sat on the edge of the bed in the west wing. Her hair was freshly washed. The cut near her temple bandaged lightly. She replayed the moment over and over. The headlights. The impact. His voice. Xiaoran. He entered the room without knocking. Not as president. Not as heir. As something else entirely. He sat beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was different tonight. Not distant. Heavy with what almost happened. "You could have died," he said finally. The words sounded unfamiliar in his mouth. She looked at him. "So could you," she replied softly. He exhaled sharply. "That was not random." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I underestimated how far they would go." "For the company?" she asked. "For leverage." A pause. "For the heirs." There it was again. That word. Necessary. Strategic. She studied him quietly. Then asked the question that had been building since the roadside confession in the rain. "Am I just the mother of your heirs?" The room stilled. He did not answer immediately, because for the first time, he understood that the answer mattered more than any board vote. Her gaze did not accuse. It searched. Outside, spring wind brushed against the estate walls. Inside, the man who had been taught to prioritize legacy above everything else realized he had nearly lost something far more irreplaceable. And this time, he could not afford to answer incorrectly. The rain returned without warning. Not the polite drizzle that softened the estate gardens, but the kind that blurred streetlights and turned asphalt into mirrors. The same stretch of roadside where everything had changed months ago lay quiet under the storm. This was where he had stepped out of a black car, where a crowd had laughed, where he had wrapped his coat around a shaking girl and said, "Let's see who dares touch her." Tonight, there was no crowd, no humiliation, only memory. Lin Xiaoran stood beneath a street lamp, the rain soaking through her thin cardigan within seconds. She had asked Zhou Liang for the address earlier, pretending it was for a campus project. It wasn't. She needed to stand where her life had fractured and decide what it had become. Headlights cut through the rain. A familiar black car slowed.
Stopped.
Gui Chen stepped out, umbrella already open. He did not ask how she knew to find this place. He did not ask why she was here. He walked toward her, shielding her from the rain instinctively. "You'll get sick," he said evenly. She did not move beneath the umbrella. "Why did you marry me?" The question did not tremble. The rain answered in sheets. "For the children," he replied. "That's not what I asked." Lightning flickered somewhere distant. He watched water trail down her hair, along her jaw. She looked stronger now than she had that first night. Not fragile, not desperate.
Steady.
"You had 17 generations pressing on your shoulders," she continued quietly. "A bloodline obsessed with continuity. I understand duty." Her eyes lifted to his. "But I am not a duty." The words landed heavier than accusation. The umbrella tilted slightly as his grip tightened. "You think I see you as obligation?" he asked. "I think you see me as necessary." Rain hammered the umbrella harder. She stepped back deliberately, out from under it. Water drenched her instantly. "If the bloodline didn't matter," she said, "would you still choose me?" Silence. The question tore through years of conditioning, through boardrooms, through ancestral portraits lining estate walls, through expectations carved into bone. He looked at her, really looked, not at the mother of his heirs, not at the girl who had restored a legacy, at Lin Xiaoran, the one who studied until she fainted, who refused diamonds, who insisted on earning her place, the one who walked across campus like she belonged to herself. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered the umbrella. Rain fell freely over both of them. "I don't care about the bloodline anymore." The confession felt dangerous, sacrilegious, liberating. "For the first time in my life," he said, voice steady despite the storm, "I want something that isn't about legacy." He stepped closer. If there were no heirs, no pressure, no expectation. His hand hovered near hers, not touching. "I would still choose you." The rain swallowed the space between them. Something in her expression broke, not in weakness, but in relief. He had rebelled, not against competitors, not against markets, against 17 generations of inherited weight. For her, she closed the distance first. Not dramatic, not desperate, simply certain. Inside the Gu estate, Grandfather Gu had been waiting. He did not summon her immediately. He observed. He listened. Power was not maintained through blindness. It was maintained through clarity. The private meeting came 2 days later. No witnesses, no elders, just the old man and the girl seated across from him in the East Wing study. Steam rose from untouched tea. "You love my grandson?" he asked bluntly. Xiaoran did not flinch. "Yes. And if he chose duty over you, I would leave." His gaze sharpened. "And the children?" Her fingers tightened slightly in her lap. "They are Gu heirs." "Yes. If you leave," he said evenly, "the children stay." The words were not threat. They were law. The room felt smaller. The weight of dynasty pressed against her spine. Many women would panic.
Beg.
Compromise. Xiaoran did neither. She inhaled once. "If that happens," she said quietly, "then I'll build a life worthy enough that they choose me." Silence expanded between them. The old man studied her carefully. "You would risk losing them?" "I would risk becoming someone they're proud to walk toward." Her eyes did not waver. "I won't raise sons who believe power is inherited without character." Grandfather Gu leaned back slowly. The faintest smile touched his lined face. Not sentimental. Approving. You understand this family more than most born into it, he said. She said nothing. He rose, leaning on his cane. Very well. The announcement was not quiet this time. The Gu estate opened its main hall. Family elders gathered. Executives attended. The air buzzed with anticipation. Second grandfather watched from the front row. Expression carefully neutral. Gu Zhenghong stood beneath ancestral portraits, voice carrying across the chamber. 17 generations have protected the Gu name. A pause. And today, we protect its future. His gaze swept the room. Lin Xiaoran has proven not only strength, but integrity. Murmurs quieted. She will stand beside Gu Yichen not as obligation, not as necessity. He turned toward her, but as the future Madame Gu. The title echoed, not whispered.
Declared.
Second grandfather did not object, because he understood what others did not. This was not weakness. It was evolution. Yichen stood beside her. Not rigid, not distant, present. He did not reach for her hand publicly.
He did not need to.
The declaration had already shifted the axis of the estate. That night, long after the hall emptied and formalities dissolved, Xiaoran returned to her desk in the West Wing. Textbooks open. Notes half-finished. The child care center had extended its hours. The boys were asleep. She studied until her vision blurred, until exhaustion crept in unnoticed. Her pen slipped from her fingers. Her head tilted sideways onto folded arms. Asleep, in the quiet of the room, Yichen stepped inside. He had come to remind her to rest. The sight stopped him. Lamp casting soft light, books scattered, her hair falling loosely across the pages. He moved closer, carefully brushed the strand from her face. She stirred faintly, and in the fragile space between sleep and waking, she whispered his name. Not President Gu. Not out of obligation. Just Yichen. The sound was soft, unconscious, real. His hand stilled. For a man raised to believe emotion was weakness, the moment felt devastating in its simplicity. He turned off the lamp gently, but as darkness settled over the room, he did not move away. And for the first time since inheriting an empire, he felt something far more dangerous than responsibility. He felt chosen. The lamp clicked off. The West Wing fell into quiet shadow, save for the soft breathing of 3 sleeping boys down the hall. Gu Yichen stood beside her desk a moment longer than necessary. Lin Xiaoran had fallen asleep over open textbooks again, ink smudged faintly against her wrist, lashes resting against cheeks still too young for the weight they had carried. He slid one arm beneath her knees, the other around her shoulders.
Carefully,
as though lifting something sacred. She stirred as he straightened. Yichen, she murmured, voice caught between dream and waking. Not questioning, not uncertain, just his name. Something inside him fractured. For years, he had trained himself to withstand pressure without visible strain. Boardroom attacks, shareholder rebellions, economic downturns. But this quiet trust undid him more thoroughly than any corporate war. He carried her to the bed and laid her down gently. She shifted toward him instinctively, fingers catching lightly at his sleeve before settling. He sat at the edge of the mattress longer than he should have, watching, listening, letting the walls he had inherited thin without resistance. For the first time in his life, Gu Yichen allowed himself to feel without calculating the cost. Spring arrived without rain. The estate gardens transformed first, pale blossoms unfolding along stone pathways, petals drifting like soft confessions against the air. The West Wing windows were open more often now. Laughter replaced the echo of medical machines. Time moved forward. Not violently, not abruptly, but steadily. 2 years later, the boys ran before they spoke clearly. 3 small figures racing across trimmed grass, identical dimples flashing beneath sunlight. They did not know they had once been whispered about in boardrooms. They did not understand bloodline politics. They understood butterflies, and their mother's voice calling them back before they wandered too far. Lin Xiaoran sat beneath a blooming tree, textbooks resting in her lap. Graduate coursework now. Advanced. demanding. Her hair was longer, tied loosely at the nape of her neck. She wore no symbols of wealth, no heavy jewels, just quiet confidence stitched into posture and presence. Occasionally, one of the boys would run back to her, pressing a fallen blossom into her palm as if presenting treasure. She would smile, kiss his hair, and send him racing off again. The estate felt different. Not rigid, not watchful.
Alive.
From the veranda steps, Ichen observed. Not from behind glass. Not through security footage. But openly. Hands in pockets. Suit jacket discarded over a chair behind him. He had taken the afternoon off without announcement. Without justification. He watched one son stumble and rise again. Watched Sharon stand instinctively before realizing the boy had regained balance on his own. He watched her sit back down, trust evident in the small exhale she released. He no longer saw her as obligation, or even miracle. He saw her as anchor. He walked toward them slowly. One of the boys spotted him first. Baba. The word came with absolute certainty. Not president. Not whispered title. Just father. 3 small bodies collided into his legs at once. He bent instinctively, laughter escaping before he could restrain it. Sharon looked up from her notes. Their eyes met. No storm. No uncertainty. Only shared understanding. He crossed the remaining distance, one child balanced against his hip. What are you studying? He asked. Policy analysis, she replied lightly. It's less dramatic than corporate mergers. He almost smiled. Almost. Very. She tilted her head slightly. You're home early. I wanted to be. Simple. Honest. She did not press further. She didn't need to. High above, from the balcony of the East Wing, Grandfather Gu watched the scene unfold. Cane resting lightly against marble. 17 generations of expectation stood behind him in silent portraits. He had once believed continuity was survival. That blood alone preserved power. But watching his grandson kneel in grass with soil-staining tailored trousers, watching Sharon guide a toddler's hand patiently through the shape of a character, he understood something deeper. Legacy was not secured in laboratories. It was built in moments like this. Whole. Unforced. For the first time in 17 generations, the Gu family was not surviving. It was complete. He spoke the words quietly, though no one stood beside him. For the first time in 17 generations, the Gu family is whole. The wind carried petals across the balcony, as if in agreement. Later that afternoon, Shaoran returned to the same street where everything had once broken. Not alone. Sunlight filtered through trees lining the road. The asphalt no longer reflected stormwater. It reflected warmth. The same street lamp stood, the same curb, but no crowd gathered. No laughter cut through the air. She held one child's hand. Ichen held another. The third darted slightly ahead, chasing drifting blossoms. She paused beneath the tree that once offered no shelter. Petals fell lightly into her hair. She remembered standing here soaked and small. Remembered whispering his name like confession. Now. The air was clear. The sky open. He noticed her stillness. Are you thinking about that night? He asked. Yes. And she looked at their sons racing in sunlight. At how different it feels. He stepped closer. No umbrella, he said quietly. She smiled faintly. No rain. A blossom landed against his shoulder. Without ceremony, she brushed it away. The intimacy of the gesture lingered. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Earned. A passing pedestrian glanced at them without recognition. They were simply a family standing beneath spring trees. Not a dynasty. Not scandal. Just husband, wife, and children framed in afternoon light. One of the boys ran back, breathless. Look, he held up a blossom triumphantly. Shaoran knelt, examining it as if it were priceless. It's perfect, she said. Ichen watched her, and understood something he had resisted his entire life. Wholeness did not come from power. It came from choosing again and again without fear. He slipped his hand into hers. She did not hesitate. Above them, Blossoms continued to fall.
Soft.
Endless. No storm clouds gathered on the horizon. No rival boardroom whispers intruded upon the moment. Just sunlight stretching across the same street that once held humiliation. Now it held laughter. The past had not disappeared. It had transformed. And as their children ran ahead, chasing petals across warm pavement, the curse that had shadowed 17 generations dissolved quietly into spring air. Not with spectacle, not with announcement, but with something far stronger.
Choice.